Powered by the Apocalypse and all of the games similar to it. Generally speaking, I have not been a huge fan. I even made a video on it that a lot of people made a lot of good suggestions, so I was willing to give it a shot. Played nothing but Powered by the Apocalypse for 30 days or more, and these were the results. Let's talk about it. Welcome back to the channel. This is the Sacred Art of Gaming, where we love talking about tabletop gaming, building stories, discovering games, making worlds, and hacking up rules. And in this instance, we're talking about Powered by the Apocalypse. Now, this is actually my second time recording this video, because the first one that I recorded was probably a little more negative than I feel like it should have been. Because there was a lot of good stuff in that video and I wanted to get it fresh. This being like 12 days later after completing. And I've had some time to reflect on a lot of the good things that came out of this experiment. And to kind of rehash what I went over in the other video, just to give you an idea. What happened was I started, generally speaking, by, and I went over the struggles here maybe more than I should, but things really started to kick off with Dungeonworld, I would say. Blades in the Dark, I kind of played ahead of time, technically like ahead of schedule, and then I kept trying to make Avatar Legends work, because honestly, that's the main reason this experiment exists, because I love the idea of Avatar Legends, and I've been struggling with it. So, things really got cooking with Dungeonworld. Then I went to public access. It felt like I was going to waste something that would have been better in a group, so once I got to the point I needed to be pretty much to play, then I was like, I'll wait for a group. From there, I went back to Avatar Legends, finally got cooking on that. The starter set adventure, I hate, and I think maybe that's a Powered by the Apocalypse-ism, the way they do their adventures, but to say that's in a starter set, I feel like it's not very beginner friendly, and that's why I struggled with it so much. I did one of them. I felt weird about the adventure, but I felt pretty decent about Avatar Legends in the end. And then Masks. Dungeonworld, Masks, and then Band of Blades, I think were the high points of this experiment for me. Band of Blades being Powered by the Apocalypse adjacent. So Masks, and then that's where I start to go into my digital games, Apocalypse World, Root, Monster of the Week. And I struggled, so then I was like, what do I have physically? Band of Blades. I was torn between that and Starforged. I went with Band of Blades, loved it. Went back to the digital stuff. I have a feeling Root is going to be a game that I love, but I don't have it physically. It is kind of pricey for me to like make a decision on a whim to just try it out. So, I mean, if I ever see a good deal on it, I'll grab it, but I'm like buried in games that I'm already not playing. So it's on the list if I see a good deal. That's kind of generally how I tackle these things anyways, because I usually have way more than I can play. Apocalypse World I really didn't love, felt like it was rough around the edges. Monster of the Week, I see a lot of potential there. And then in the end, I really appreciated the brilliance that is Ironsworn Starforged, which I kind of figured was gonna happen. Now my thoughts and my lessons learned, which I think I want the bulk of this video to be, and maybe I'll splice in some of the information from the last one where the gaps are here. I'm gonna start with one negative thing. One negative thing, and then everything else will probably be positive. So the one negative thing being that Powered by the Apocalypse, at least in solo, I think in group play, because you're playing pretend for so long with different people, it feels a little more natural, because it's really just the role-playing sections in other games. But Powered by the Apocalypse is doing it like all the time, most of the time. Usually combat and other games, like things get a little bit more strict, whereas PbtA, it's like that all the time. And there are aspects of that I love. Like initiative, for example, you're able to, and Daggerheart does this well, which is not Powered by the Apocalypse, but highlighting who is important in this scene, I think is a really cool aspect that Powered by the Apocalypse brings to the table. The mechanization of the story versus the play can be weird, but when you get cooking like I did in Masks, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. There are times where it feels like the The rules are focusing on places that I don't necessarily want them to. Playing until you have like a trigger can kind of also feel odd. But in hindsight, I am realizing, I did a whole, I don't know which video will come out first, but I did a whole diagram basically showcasing how when I'm playing at my best in solo play, it is very Powered by the Apocalypse-esque. And Powered by the Apocalypse forces some of this to happen where you need the scene to have a good foundation. You then ask your follow-up yes/no questions, sprinkle in some randomness, and then if it's really important with stakes that matter, and you know what the stakes are going into it, you make a skill check. But you cannot make a skill check unless you know all of that stuff, because then it gets really awkward. So in a lot of ways, it has made me a better player and potentially even game master because of that. Because of the way the game kind of forces you to play. Other games have allowed me to pick up some bad habits, let's say. Because of this, it makes me realize that, how important the fiction and the scene is regardless of the system that you're playing, especially for solo. Now, Forged in the Dark has some really cool, I made these little like triangle standee things because I felt like it was easier for me to keep track. They have position and effect. All PbtA games kind of have that in the background to some degree, but Forged in the Dark, Blades in the Dark calls it out and has a mechanism behind it. Are you in a risky position, a controlled position, or a desperate position? And then your effect. Is it going to be a standard effect, a limited effect, or a great effect? I think those are really cool levers to pull on that make a lot of sense. To use a combat example, let's say like Dungeonworld, you're trying to defeat this dragon, and the dragon's flying around, and someone's like, I'm gonna shoot my bow at it. Well, that's gonna be pretty hard. That's gonna be pretty hard. Even if you hit, are you even gonna do anything? So it may be a limited effect. People can try to do dumb things. They kind of know going into it that even if you succeed, you're not doing much, and that's just the way things are. And then also from the position that you're doing it from. Let's say you're sniping from, off the map, basically. You're in a very controlled position. But let's say you're a sniper and there's a patrol over where you were in your ghillie suit, I guess, and they're now all around that area trying to figure out where the shot came from. Now you're potentially in probably a risky position. And then let's say they find you. I say risky because you still have camouflage on your side. But let's say they find you and now you're on the run. Now your ghillie suit is not helping you anymore. Now you're like in a desperate position. Yeah, it kind of allows you to frame your narrative position. And I think there's a lot of cool stuff that can come from that. Whereas when you're playing a traditional game where, I hit them with my sword, they hit me with their sword, they throw a spear at me, I shoot them with my gun. That's kind of cool, but those are like paper buttons, if we're being honest. I would like to get away from paper. I've always wanted to get away from paper buttons. I think the group that I play with, they love paper buttons. So I think it's easy to get pulled into the paper button world. But yeah, I don't think that's where the best gameplay happens. The best gameplay happens where the things that are not on your character sheet, in my humble opinion. It's the fun stuff that happens between you and, if you're playing solo, the oracles or whatever, or you and your table and the GM, regardless of what your stats say or what your abilities say. And I think Powered by the Apocalypse kind of forces that to some degree. So there was that, always in role-playing mode. I did really enjoy the characters getting shaped by their stats through play, like Mass and Avatar. And I'm also finding that I think I like the crunchier Powered by the Apocalypse games. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Root and Dungeonworld, especially Root, I think are on the crunchier side, and I think there's some similarities there. And then also games like Avatar, I don't know if Mass, but I would say Avatar might also be kind of on the crunchier side, where you have these resources that you can use, multiple different resources that you can use to change the fiction And also the GM can stress the players through those different levers and clocks and, you know, whatever they have at their disposal. I dig that a lot. And like I kind of mentioned already, all of this made me really appreciate how tight Ironsworn and Starforged is, where they spell out a lot of stuff for you, and there's a lot of moves, but in solo play, it's kind of nice to have those. I do get overwhelmed by a lot of moves, and I see how Masks Dungeonworld had a much more reasonable level of moves, but then there were things that I'm like, what happens here? So because the way Ironsworn is built, everything is flowing in a direction to something else, kind of. There's less open to interpretation. I think I will be better for it in those types of games. So that has been my Power by the Apocalypse experiment. Let me know your thoughts on Power by the Apocalypse, and your thoughts on my thoughts on Power by the Apocalypse and similar games. Do you have any other Power by the Apocalypse recommendations for me? Someone mentioned, I think it's Legacies 2E, which looks interesting. It's hard to say. I need to do more research on it, I think, and there wasn't a lot for it. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Let's discuss down below. Like, comment, subscribe, hype, shoot the J, whatever. And I will see you in the next one as we continue to explore the sacred art of gaming together.